Bet.
All right. Hello, you are now tuning in to the Black Film Critic-ish podcast. We have a very exciting topic today. We will be talking about the iconic movie, The Five Bloods. This movie was, phew, it was a lot. Before we delve into the movie, let's introduce our guest. My name is Peace Arabieke.
My name is Kaylin Steele.
I'm Rebecca Hackett.
I'm Nia Woods.
I'm Gia Thorpe.
The Five Bloods is a film that portrays the after effects of war on different people. It shows how war can shape and change a person. Additionally, the war doesn't just impact the government, but also the people of the country, and that there are life effects as a result of war. The Five Bloods pulls the traumas of Black men's experiences of the Vietnam War out of obscurity and puts them in the forefront of political consciousness. The film tells the story of 4 Vietnam War veterans and lifelong friends who are distanced but not estranged, who regroup in Vietnam to recover the body of their former commanding officer and to collect a stash of gold bars that they'd buried after the firefight in which he was killed.
This movie was a very interesting watch. Films can definitely make us understand more about war and its consequences, especially through editing and camera work. In the movie The Five Bloods, it immediately starts off with a montage about the Vietnam War and the after effects on the community, not only in America, but also in Vietnam. There's a segment where Muhammad Ali talks about Black Americans and how they're expected to fight a war for a country that doesn't even respect them. I thought that was a very powerful thing to add, especially for the first scene. It's very true. The American government sent off these African Americans to fight off in a war representing America, where they came back to this country and were still being racially discriminated against. Honestly, now we all still have these expectations to serve, love, and respect this country, yet we still face this racial discrimination. This was a very moving perspective to add. Additionally, this montage displayed disturbing images of Vietnam civilians, more so children being brutally murdered. I just remember being so shocked by the moment where we saw a man getting shot in the head within the first 2 minutes of the film. It was uncomfortable to take in, but this montage really set the mood for the entire film. Another detail I picked up from editing was how whenever there was a transition to the past, the camera quality shifted to what it would look like at that point in time. I appreciate this in camera work because this gives the audience a more realistic perspective to the scene. Another point I wanted to talk about was whenever someone was referenced, their picture would be shown for a few minutes. For me, this gave a better understanding of what context was given. For example, when Norm was first referenced in the film, his picture was displayed on the screen. This for me gives the audience a better perspective of what kind of person they were talking about and what really represented them. A final point I like to add was during Paul's mental breakdown. We can understand his loss of sanity when the camera switches over to Norm, who we all know is dead. This gives the audience an understanding that Paul is not all there in this moment and that he's not okay.
The settings for The Five Bloods, as we know, takes place in Vietnam. For costumes, Spike Lee has one of the Bloods wear a Make America Great Again hat, while his son attended a well-known prestigious HBCU, Morehouse, and proudly wears his shirt. It shows how weird and strained Paul and his son's relationship is because of the 2 completely different wardrobes. One supports a bigot, narcissist, and racist, while the other is very pro-Black. The Five Bloods always dressed ready for war, in a way, rather than Paul's son was in more modern clothes. He always wore khakis and tucked his shirt in.
The music of The Five Bloods is a political message of its own outside of the script and the film itself. It has multiple songs that were the soundtrack of the 60s and 70s that were all anti-war political songs that fueled the anti-war movement. One song in particular was played, it's called Holy Holy by Marvin Gaye. It was played as the four members of the Five Bloods that were left found Stormin' Norman's remains and his dog tags. And the song is a gospel plea about bringing people together and making sure that we are fighting for the right cause. And that's in turn Stormin' Norman's theme throughout the entire film. What we learn about him is that he was all about bringing Black people together. And this was something that the Five Bloods internalized and almost lived by as like a religion throughout the rest of their life after they left Stormin' Norman in Vietnam. So having that play in the background as they find his remains was a really special moment that was thought through a lot by Spike Lee. You can tell, and it's like that with all of the music that's played throughout the film. Most of the songs were from Marvin Gaye's album What's Going On, which was a very big hit during the 70s. And so it's just a great reference to the time period of the war, which is what the actors and characters are thinking of throughout the film.
Spike Lee directly casted members according to the person that they were, as far as what they could bring to the table in this film. He was very distinctive and gave each actor their own creative direction while still guiding them into his personal vision. He wanted this film to be a new perspective on the Black soldier, as well as drawing parallels to the journey that the characters are going through, with the journeys that Black men go through in today's society and throughout the Vietnam War as well. In the film, this shows the humanity, and how everything has affected the Black man, not just in the war, but in the world as well, throughout the casting of the characters. Each character gave Spike Lee immense credit for the difficulty in some of the actions that he wanted them to do, but in the end, they worked out to create a great movie. All right, so now I will talk about the script. And as we all know, a script really does make a movie. So I'm going to talk about the background of the script and how it came to be. So the original script was supposed to be an adventure movie, and it was influenced by Apocalypse Now. And the original cast was supposed to be white veterans, and they were making their way through modern Vietnam, and they were looking for their squad leader, which they would later find out was alive. And the original director was supposed to be Oliver Stone, and he was a Vietnam veteran himself. However, after making 3 movies about Vietnam, I think he had enough. So he dropped out, and the script found its way to the directors of the Five Bloods, which is Lee, Bilson, Lee, and Wilmot. And Lee and Wilmot were originally friends in theater school, and their writing was influenced by John Muse, which was their theater teacher. So when they got their script, Lee and Wilmot, they really didn't do too much to it because the script was already built upon. It was a really good script. But the biggest thing that they did was by adding the flashbacks to show who Stormin is. And they really, as we can tell by the movie, they did an amazing job by doing that. And their goals, they had numerous goals and things that they kept in mind. The first one, they made sure to kind of like change the racist themes that we see all the time in Vietnam movies. Also, they try not to like make the Vietnam people out to be bad guys, even though yes, they were, but they try to create a face, make them more human than villain, which is a stark difference from other Vietnam movies where the Vietnam people are the villain and Americans are the heroes, we're the bad. Yeah. So that was a stark difference. Also, Spike Lee also focused on how everyone was an oppressed group to show how even though we're different, even though we're fighting, we're like this, we're still more alike than we think. Also, and in an interview with the writers, they explained that they wrote the Paul character that the way he was, but the actor Lindo, he really took it next level. He presented um, Paul in a way that was out of this world, as we saw in the movie. Also, yes, about the Trump Supporter Act, yes, that was a very interesting choice that they made. At the original script, the writers and the cast members and the actors were supposed to be white, so decided to keep that part in after they made everyone black because they thought it would be a different look, and it definitely was. It created more tension. But yes, they had a lot of stylistic choices in making the script what it was. But I think it was amazing. It turned out well. Thank you.
Overall, from the camera work and editing, we can understand more about war and its consequences through the montage that this movie displays. We see the after effects of war on the Vietnam people as their whole quality of life has changed. Children are seen with lost limbs as they were blown by discarded landmines and other instances, in addition to the hatred of American troops from this unnecessary war. War doesn't impact the government as much as it impacts its direct communities. We see that there's a more harsh impacts and life-changing aspects on these communities more so than it does on the government. For the psychological impact of the film, we see the psychological effect of the film mainly on the main characters. The audience see how Paul suffers from PTSD from the Vietnam War, especially in how he interacts with the Vietnam natives, especially within his mental breakdown with the persistent chicken merchant. In addition to how he held the People in the Lamb organization captive after they held his son, or after they helped his son. He held them as if they were prisoners of war. I just felt like that was an immediate reaction as a result of his experience as a soldier in the Vietnam War. It also shows that this can be one of his coping mechanisms as we all see that Paul is a violent person.